But first, last night here on Credlin, I interviewed the Victorian Liberal leader John Pesutto over his decision to move to expel one of his colleagues, Upper House MP Moria Deeming, from the Parliamentary Liberal Party. When I asked the leader why Deeming must go, he said this.
It's not about freedom of speech, and it's not about women's rights and women's safety. You know many of the people in the Liberal Party room, and you know they're as passionate about this issue as Moira. And this doesn't involve any of them. The reason I'm taking action, Peter, is because Moira helped organise a protest that was organised with people who have shared platforms with people who have expressed Nazi sympathies or white supremacist views.
Now, two things there. Pesutto's wrong when he says this is not about women's rights. Actually, this is everything about women's rights. The right of women to defend women's spaces and our biological sex, our language even, from being relegated to less than human, to a person with a cervix, to a chest that feeds an infant, or this nonsense of a person who menstruates. So wrong, John Pesutto, wrong. The second thing is his claim that Moria Deeming helped organise an event that was fronted by people who had shared platforms with Nazis and white supremacists. It's a claim he had launched earlier in the day in a radio interview with Melbourne's Neil Mitchell.
Kelly J. Keane.
And she's had associations she's got associations with Nazis. Who?
Well, okay, so Jean-Francois Jerapy, she's done videos with Richard Spencer, Mark Collett, Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke. There's a long...
Were they videos or interviews?
Videos, interviews. She shared platforms with...
He's talking there about the UK activist Kelly J. Keane. Now, this is where I think Pesutto's really in trouble. This is where I think there's been a massive cock-up in the Liberal Party backroom on Sunday that's led to a hot-headed response to try and expel Deeming based on material that just doesn't stack up. After those radio comments, as I said last night, I did a lot of digging around. I read everything I could find in primary source, wherever I could, and I couldn't find anything that substantiates Pesutto's claim that Kelly J. Keane has, in his words, shared platforms with Nazis and white supremacists. Now, if Keane was proven to be guilty of what Pesutto says, I'd be the first to say, fair enough. Anyone giving her a helping hand and a platform in front of the Parliament should go as well. But as I said, there's no evidence, none at all, to back up Pesutto's claim. Worse still, when I pushed him on this last night, he said this. If Moria Deeming is going to be expelled from the Liberal Party because she was involved in the organisation of an event with a UK woman who was interviewed by someone, and that person interviewed someone that you and I both think is pretty reprehensible, that's like 10 degrees of separation to throw someone out of the party. Is that what it's about?
No, there's more than that. And there's a range of events or interviews, discussions that we've referenced in the material. So it's not just one. When Neil asked me about that this morning on Melbourne Radio, I was referencing just the top of that. But there's a fuller list of things that we've included.
Are you going to make this list public?
I will look to see if I can do that. These are processes we don't use a lot.
Last night I asked him, you heard me there, if I could see this notice of motion, his log of claims against Moria Deeming. Now, I've seen it and I've read it. And tonight I can show it to you as well because it's now been published online by The Australian. This morning I read the 17 pages of the notice of motion carefully. Not only is there nothing that adds any extra weight to his claims against Kelly J. Keane, there's nothing in that, nothing at all, that makes a case against Deeming. And let's not forget, to expel a duly elected MP from your party room is about as grave as a political move you can make. And yet, there's nothing here to substantiate that move legally, morally, or politically. Don't forget either that the Liberal Party leader and his office knew Deeming was going to attend and speak at the weekend's rally because she announced it publicly to the whole Parliament 2 weeks earlier on International Women's Day, even asking the Labor Women's Minister in the Parliament to go to the rally with her.
Will the Minister for Women, Natalie Hutchins, let women speak to her and join us on the steps of Parliament on the 18th of March for the listening post and actually hear what women have to say on this issue.
So no ambush, no surprise. So having been on the inside of a political leader's office, here's what I think has happened. When news broke of the women's rally being crashed by neo-Nazi types making an offensive Nazi salute, the Liberal leader and those around him panicked. Working off a mere Wikipedia page for Kelly J. Keane, they condemned her and anyone associated with her, including one of their own, Moria Deeming. In short, their background research was cursory at best, negligent and defamatory at worst. If cooler heads had prevailed, they would have condemned the Nazi salute and called Deeming in for a frank discussion. They would have read beyond Keane's Wikipedia page and in doing so, understood there was no expulsion case against Deeming. Instead, they went off half-cocked through claims at Kelly J. Keane that can't be justified then or now, and by extension, gone after Deeming with a motion to expel her that I'm sure they now wish they could withdraw. Now, there's nothing in Deeming's actions on the weekend that warrants expulsion from the Liberal party room. And I say that as someone with almost 3 decades of history in the Liberal Party. But more than that, contemplate this. If the motion to expel her next week gets up, Deeming will be out of the Parliamentary Liberal Party, but still a Liberal. And here's why. Because even her biggest critics acknowledge they would never win a vote to expel her from the wider party because she's got strong support amongst the Liberal base. So you could well have the uncomfortable and very real possibility that Deeming can't sit with the Liberals in the Parliament, but will be able to turn up to Liberal Party events. And believe me, if they make her a martyr on free speech and women's rights, she will turn up to a rock star's reception. John Pizzuto, a decent man from what I've seen, is in a lot of trouble over this. He's put his leadership on the line, a leadership that he only won in November by 1 vote, on a case against Moria Deeming that's built on sand. If Deeming is not now expelled, it's an effective repudiation of the leader. But if she is, it's an effective repudiation of the women's rights movement. Even though there are millions of women who don't want to make themselves targets by going to rallies or being vocal on social media, who are worried that decades of hard-won gains are now at risk if a woman can be just any bloke who says he's a woman. Whatever way it now goes, it's lose-lose. If the expulsion bid fails, as it should, because there's no case to expel Deeming, then the Liberals will be damned, falsely I might add, as defending neo-Nazis. And if it succeeds, his party will be seen as backing trans rights over women's rights and pitting the party membership base against its parliamentary team. And expelling yet another tough-minded Conservative, I might add, from a party that needs Conservative votes if it's to have any chance of getting back into power. Already, you can see how Daniel Andrews is playing the politics.
That event was a nasty, hateful gathering long before anybody used the Nazi salute. Mr Pizzuto and the Liberal Party can explain why some forms of hate are okay and other forms aren't. I think all hate is wrong.
Well, that was this morning. This afternoon, he posted this tweet informing us he's now flying the transgender flag, I mean, who even knew there was one, out the front of his office for no other purpose than as virtue signalling a wedge against the Liberals. If there's any justice for Deeming, Pizzuto would admit he got it wrong. But leaders rarely survive a back down of this magnitude, so they rarely make them. All in all, an unholy mess, yet again, for the Victorian Liberals.